Gerry Oginski, welcome to Legally Contented. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Wayne, for having me. My name is Gerry Oginski. I'm a New York medical malpractice attorney practicing in New York. And so hopefully I can share some great information with you today, Wayne.
Gerry, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to chat with us. I think you are widely recognized as the OG, the original gangster, when it comes to YouTube marketing and video marketing for lawyers. And I want to dive all into YouTube and video marketing. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about what you do today as a medical malpractice attorney and your path from law school to where you are today, because you didn't always start. You weren't always practicing on the plaintiff side. So give me a little sense of where you were after law school leading up to what you're practicing today.
Sure. After I got out of law school, I went to work for a defense, personal injury, and medical malpractice firm in downtown Manhattan. And I learned from one of the best defense attorneys possible. I was there for about 4 years. From there, I then shifted over to plaintiff side doing personal injury and medical malpractice. And it just progressed to the point where I said, you know what, it's time for me to go out on my own. And ultimately, I did go out on my own, and I was on my own for about 14 years. And then I realized, you know what, it's probably not a great idea to be a solo practitioner handling medical malpractice cases for many different reasons as a trial attorney. And I wound up being recruited by one of the top medical malpractice firms in New York, if not the country, in downtown Manhattan, where I'm currently located. So that's it in a nutshell.
Did something happen when you were defending, when you were on the defense side, that made you say, maybe I should be on the other side of that table representing the individuals?
Yeah. Well, to go back even one step further, I originally had an interest in medical malpractice. My father was a victim of medical malpractice, and my mother ultimately brought a malpractice case on our family's behalf. And that led me down the path of becoming fascinated with medical malpractice law. And I knew going into law school, that was the only area I wanted to handle. And so for me, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So here I am, getting out of law school, going to work for a medical malpractice defense firm. My goal was to learn as much as possible. And what I really wanted to do was be a trial lawyer. I wanted to be able to trial lawyer like I saw our family's trial lawyer be. I wanted to be better than he was. And that led me down the path. And after 4 years, I realized, you know what? I think I can better help my clients being a plaintiff's attorney, because ultimately I think that gives me more satisfaction, and I'm helping more people do that. And so ultimately that's where I wound up going, doing plaintiff's work. And then I was with one firm for about 4 years. Then I connected with a former law school classmate of mine, and I joined as a senior trial attorney working with his firm for the next 6 years. And then I'm out on my own for the next 14. So it's a whole progression that just continued to build confidence in me and what I was able to do and how I got to where I am today, which you'll see in a few moments when we start talking about the marketing aspect, what occurred as I'm progressing, going from the defense side to the plaintiff side to another firm, and then being a solo, and then trying to get cases in the door.
How old were you when your father had the medical malpractice issue?
I was 14 when my father died. And as a result of his death, it turned out it was malpractice, and that had a huge impact on me. And because of that, this case that my mother had brought on our family's behalf actually went to trial. And I remember being in college and going to watch parts of closing arguments, parts of the trial, and I'm just sitting there fascinated. I'd never been in a courtroom before. I'd never seen what goes on. And I was just enthralled with what this attorney was trying to accomplish with cross-examination, with an expert witness, with closing arguments. And I just kept thinking to the back of my, in the back of my mind as I'm sitting in the back of the courtroom, I can do this. This, I think, is what I was meant to do. So that got me on my path to where I am.
Well, obviously, I'm sorry for your loss. It's amazing how at the right time, you're 14 years old, you're just thinking about what you want to do for a living, you're a teenager, you're like becoming an adult slowly. And for this to happen and to be able to guide you through the rest of your high school life, through college, through law school. There are lawyers who even today went through undergrad, went through law school, and have no idea what the hell they want to do in their legal practice.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about when you were on the defense side of things. At your age, at your relative experience, was there any pressure on you to start marketing? When did the need for you to market yourself begin?
I had no interest in marketing. I had no interest in advertising. The cases were simply handed to us. We had a huge caseload. We're required to be the best lawyer we can be at that age. I was with a firm that gave us the opportunity to try cases only a few months out of law school. So it was remarkable. And that was the only one of the best firms in New York City that was doing that allowed it. The boss said, look, if you're ready to try it, you go try the case. And no other firms around at that time were letting a 26-year-old, a 27-year-old try these cases. And it was remarkable. So I'm trying a brain damaged baby at the age of 27 against one of the top plaintiff's attorneys in New York City. And the only thing my boss said to me was, go learn everything you can while you're trying this case. And if you settle the case, fine, you settle the case, but at least you're learning. So I didn't have to know anything. And in fact, back then, in the late 80s, advertising by attorneys were looked down upon. Very, very much so. Everybody I encountered had their noses looking down at the people who were doing TV advertising at that point. It didn't even cross my mind, had no interest. When I switched over to the plaintiff side, again, I was handed a caseload. I didn't have to do any marketing. I just had to handle the case on a day-to-day basis, deal with the clients, handle the trials. That's it. I never had to worry about marketing. Okay. So now fast forward a bit. So now I'm with this firm where I'm now the senior trial attorney for handling medical malpractice cases. And I'm getting cases in because of the work I had done. Because I had done well, because I had gotten good settlements, now I'm starting to get referrals. Referrals from colleagues, referrals from former clients. And I thought, this is great. This is the best way to do it. I'll be the best lawyer I can. And now the cases just keep coming in. Well, that was around the time that I realized, you know what? I'm getting these cases coming in. I can do this on my own. I don't need my firm to be the overall bank for me because I was the only one handling my cases. It was if I'm a solo, but I'm just in a big firm or medium-sized firm. So I said, you know what? It's time for me to go on my own. And we had a great relationship with my partners, and we left very amicably. And now I'm in practice as a solo for about 2 or 3 years. And remember, these medical malpractice cases, these accident cases, typically have a life cycle of about 2 to 3 years, from the time they come in until the time they resolve. So by year 2, year 3, I'm still gung-ho. This is great. I'm getting referrals coming in. And this is what I anticipated the great practice of law would be. Okay, you do a good job, you get a referral, you keep going, and the cycle continues. Well, that's not exactly how it works. And I learned that the hard way as it's now the mid-2000s, 2004, 2005. My caseload, what was happening was I was getting great results from my clients, but I wasn't getting referrals in. The referrals were drying up. I wasn't getting the call from people that I knew saying, hey, I have a case for you. Hey, something happened to my friend. Hey, something happened to my relative. Those cases were drying up. And so now I was dealing very well with the cases I did have, but if you don't replenish those cases, you're going to be stuck. And the cycle continues. And since now I'm a solo practitioner, now I'm getting worried. I'm going home each night saying, I don't know what to do. I have no clue. I've never marketed anything in my life. I don't know how to sell. I don't know how to sell myself other than maybe to a court or to a judge, to a jury, my client's case. And I was getting very worried until one day my secretary came to me. It was just me and her as a solo. She said, listen, unless you can find a way to bring in more cases, you're not going to be able to afford my salary. You won't be able to pay the rent. And you've got only a couple of months left cushion in the bank. to be able to do this. I'm like, holy cow, this is bad. This is really, really bad. I have a family. I have kids to support. I have a mortgage. I'm like, I've got to do something. I was desperate. So I'm scrounging around, looking online. Remember, the internet was just taking off at that time, 2004, 2005, and attorneys had no clue how to use it and for what purpose. So I'm trying to find information from somebody about, please help me market. So you know what I did? I did what every lawyer in New York did. Yellow Pages. I went to the Yellow Pages. I contacted the rep, and I said, you got to get me into the Yellow Pages. And she sat down with me, gave me a whole sales pitch. I said, okay, give me the biggest thing you can get. She sold me on a full-page ad in the Yellow Pages. And I didn't know anything about Yellow Pages advertising. I thought all my colleagues are doing it, all my competitors are doing it, so therefore it must be working. I invested $25,000 for a one-page ad that I partially designed because I didn't like what they had designed. And I'm thinking, okay, this is great. This is going to be so cool. I'm going to get calls. This is going to be fantastic. Okay, what I didn't realize is that it only gets published once a year. I also didn't realize that I would be page 8 of the full page ads. And then beyond that would be the partial page ads, half page and quarter page. And what I also didn't recognize was that this was one of the most competitive markets in the country for Yellow Pages. So it turns out that the calls that I would get were from people who had tried 7 other lawyers ahead of me in the Yellow Pages, and now they were all rejects. And this is, I'm just going out of my mind. I didn't have this money. I scrounged this money to pay for this thing, and I was desperate, and I didn't know what to do until one day I got a case that actually had merit. All the other cases were crap. I got nothing. One case had merit. It was a slip and fall. A guy broke his wrist or his elbow, an elderly guy walking across the street in a construction area, and I actually got enough money as the attorney's fee to pay for that ad. Not a dime more. That was my fee. It covered the ad, but nothing else. And I said, I have to do something else. I don't understand this. Okay? I can't keep doing what everybody else, all my competitors are doing. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on these Yellow Pages ads. I can't stand out from the rest of the crowd. Saying, we fight hard for you. Standing there mean looking, we really are good. We have lots of experience. Everybody says that. We have free
with
parking.
The law books behind you.
Yeah, that was the distinguishing factor, that we have free parking. I didn't know a damn thing about marketing. So I was desperate. And at that time, I started learning about a concept called education-based marketing from an internet guy named David Fry. David Fry was selling basically marketing to pool and spa companies in the Midwest. And he kept talking, I saw his articles online, he kept talking about teaching your ideal consumer, your ideal client, something that they need to know so that they begin to trust you. I'm thinking, okay, my caseload is dwindling. I have very little to do now because I don't have many cases. I'm barely eking a living out. I got some free time. So I had a 5-page website at the time that was nothing more than a template that I, with a couple of things filled in. I figured, okay, you know what? Let me just start writing some articles and putting it up on my website. And what I started to do was write articles explaining how the legal process works in New York, specifically how medical malpractice cases and how accident cases work, because I couldn't find anything like that online. And I figured, okay, I've got a website. I might as well do something. I didn't know what to do. Through this process of education-based marketing, I started writing one article after the next, and I became very interested in learning whether or not this is going to work. I figured I don't have the money to do TV, radio, or other types of advertising. I'm a solo practitioner with a dwindling caseload, and I just didn't know what to do. There were no legal marketing conferences at that time, nothing. There were no people online teaching lawyers how to do marketing. None. So what happened was I began to write these articles. And over time, I'd say many, many months, I would occasionally get a call. Hey, Mr. Oginski, I was on the internet, I was doing a search, and I found an article you did. Could you answer some of my questions? Okay. And occasionally I would get a call. No cases, nothing directly from that. So I continue. You know what? I had a lot of free time at this point because I don't know how to market myself. And I don't know to go to any marketing seminars, to go to any sales seminars. I don't know any of this stuff. And I wasn't interested. I just wanted to be a good lawyer. I wanted to be the best lawyer I could be. I didn't want to deal with any marketing. Why should I have to deal with marketing? So moving forward, I'm still writing these articles. And now the frequency of calls are getting a little bit better. And the quality of the people who are calling me are a little bit better. And then it's now about 2008. And still, I'm just barely eking out a decent living. Nothing great. And I still don't know how to market myself. And I see one or two places, attorneys that are, or marketing companies that are trying to create these marketing systems for lawyers. And I actually invested $2,500 with one, and this was ridiculous. I can't believe I even did it. This guy basically said, here are some warnings, put it on colored paper. When people call and they tell you that their time limit in which to bring a case is now approaching, send it out and pressure them to call you before the statute runs out. I'm like, oh, this is great. I got to do this. And I read all this material over a weekend, and I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I can't do this. I can't pressure somebody to come to me, especially somebody that don't know me. They don't trust me because I'm sending out letters. That was nonsense, wasted money. Okay, so now we're in 2008. I'm searching online, trying to find more information, and I come across this website, really, really interesting little website. It says, now accepting user-generated content. It had a funny little name to it. I'm like, what is user-generated video content? I had no idea. So I start searching the site, and I see some TV commercials that attorneys had made that were up there. And I'm thinking, this is so stupid. Why would anybody in their right mind voluntarily want to watch a 30-second attorney commercial? It made no sense to me. That little website was called YouTube. And I thought, you know what, this would be really interesting. What if I took an article that I wrote and somehow turn it into a video? Wouldn't that be interesting? And at that time, there were virtually no attorneys in the country who were using video to teach their ideal clients or consumers about how cases like theirs works. And I thought, I've got nothing else to do. I'm not really very productive right now, other than occasional conferences or moving whatever little small number of cases I had. And so I figured, you know what? Let me somehow see if I can create some video in some fashion. Now, the sad thing was I didn't know a single thing about video. I knew nothing about audio. I knew nothing about lighting. So what did I do? I started searching. And the only things I could find were from professional studios, professional TV studios with massive cameras, massive equipment. Again, nobody was selling equipment to lawyers or anybody else to do the type of discussion we're having now. There was none. So I figured, okay, if this is going to be a video, I've got to get some professional equipment. So here I am. I decide I'm going to get a very professional camera, a video camera, and I don't have the money for the new one. It's like $10,000. So I bought a used one a couple of years old. It cost me like $2,800, and I didn't know anything about microphones. I didn't know anything. I said, you know what? I got to stop. Let me stop. Let's go back. So I had one of the first generation Mac computers, and I knew it had a little pinhole camera at the top. I didn't even know how to turn it on. I had to ask my kids, how do I turn the camera on to make a video? So my kids, who were very young at the time, showed me, and then they said, you know what? okay, I'm upstairs in my second floor home office. I've got books all over the place and bookshelves. I can't let anybody see that. So I had a projector screen that I would use for trial. I put it up behind me, a great projector screen, which looked horrible, but I didn't want them to see what was behind me, and not like your beautiful background that you have. And the funny thing is, I put on a shirt, a tie, and a jacket, but I was wearing shorts. And I'm sitting about 7 inches away from the computer screen. And the funny thing is that I didn't realize it then, but I wear eyeglasses, and the reflection, you could see the reflection in my glasses of the screen. But you know what? I didn't care. It took me so long to try and figure out how to get this set up that you know what? I had a topic that I really wanted to talk about, and I thought this would be a useful topic for my very first video. So I create this video. It's 6 minutes long. It was probably one of the worst videos in creation. It's dark, it's grainy, it's pixelated. And then it took me about 2 weeks, a couple of weeks, to actually figure out how to put that online onto this site called YouTube. I didn't know I had to format it, and the settings were wrong, and every time I tried to do it, it was frustrating. And my kids were telling me, Dad, you're wasting so much time on this. What are you doing? I said, I'm not sure, but I think it'll be useful. So finally, I get this thing up online. Within a few days, I get a call. Hey, Mr. Oginski, I was online and I saw your video that you did about this topic. Can I ask you some questions? I'm like, oh my God, of course you can ask me some questions.
Please do.
Like, how is this possible? How did this work? That was the light bulb that went off for me and said, if somebody is going to search online for a problem that they're having, and they come across a video of mine that supposedly answers at least some of their questions, then I'm going to come out and do a second video, and a third video, and a fourth video. Because if I have content that's helping these people understand how these types of cases work, and they have a problem involving some sort of accident or medical malpractice, and I'm partially answering their question, who do you think they're more likely to go to continue answering their questions? That was a light bulb that went off. And I'm like, oh my God. So to close this loop on this little story, the title of the video that I created, that was the worst video in creation, was How to Hire a Medical Malpractice Attorney in New York. Nobody that I could find had done anything like that. No article, no video, nothing. And what was going through my mind was, what can I do to help people who need an attorney, who don't know one, who are now going onto the internet to search for information, who are looking for an attorney? So I said, okay, I don't think people know how to hire an attorney. Either they know somebody who's referred them, or if they don't know, they're just picking somebody out of the yellow pages at that point. So I said, let me try this. And that was the first video I did. It was horrible. But that was what got me started on my journey through video marketing that to now has generated, I've created for myself over 3,400 videos to market myself as an attorney, which has been nothing short of remarkable, because I get calls and emails every single day from people who watch my videos, who basically say, Mr. Oginski, I have the same problem that you were talking about in your video. Can you help me? And sometimes they call from other states, despite the fact that I always say that I'm a New York attorney.
Yeah.
They don't understand that I can't help them in another state. But that, interestingly, as a side note, has helped me create a referral network.
And I was going to go there. Absolutely. Well, and look,
so
you've been. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You've got more than 11,000 subscribers to the YouTube channel, which means that there are lots of people who are who want to be notified every time you upload a video. And what's remarkable to me is if you look at some of your most top performing videos, there's one regarding a dental implant horror story that was 14 years ago. All right. So 14 years ago, you uploaded this. It has Oh, it has 249,000 views, 250,000 views. Even if that
all
isn't
organic, by the way.
It's amazing to me that you'd have, it's that staying power. Your most popular videos 14 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, 15 years ago, it just shows that content, especially the kind of content that you are creating, that lawyers can and should be creating, that answers prospective clients and current clients' questions, has staying power, because the law might change, and what you might be able to do in a case might change a little bit if there's a new ethics rule or there's new rule of procedure. But the basics of what you should look for in a medical malpractice attorney in New York, or questions never to ask at a deposition, those things are pretty much timeless, and they probably go back, decades before the internet and YouTube. So it's fascinating to me, and I told you this before we got on the air. I often cite you when I'm talking to other lawyers about their content marketing and thought leadership marketing efforts. I send them your YouTube channel link. I can hear that violin music in my sleep, because I've heard it so much when I go to your website, that the Pawn Stars video they have up there. And I tell people, not only don't just look at these videos, but look at the topics. And I think that it is genius, the topics that you choose, because you are answering questions that clients might have that most other attorneys don't even think about, because many of these questions are things that we as attorneys take for granted. And for example, as I said before, one of my favorite topics you have is the following: your lawyer is laughing with defense lawyer as they both walk back to talk to trial judge. Now, you and I and every other lawyer would say, well, of course, you want to have a relationship with opposing counsel. You want to laugh, and you want to make sure that you have a collegial conversation, a collegial relationship, because that helps your client. But to your client back there watching Gerry talk to defense counsel who is trying to screw them over, and now Gerry's laughing with defense counsel? Is Gerry trying to screw me over too? That to me is just genius. And I'm curious, it appears you stumbled early on upon this idea that you want to educate and you want to provide answers to questions clients might have. But how do you go about coming up with these topics? Because on one hand, clients have questions all day, every day, but not everyone might be video worthy in terms of you being able to spend a few minutes talking about it in a video that could be helpful to other prospective clients. So can you talk a little bit about that process you go through? Are you down to the granular here, are you collecting them in a notes app on your phone? Do you jot them down on a pad by your bed like a comedian does? How do you track these topics, and what's the process for the idea going from the idea in your brain to an actual video?
I started with a small notebook, and I became, as you can tell, I became a very big marketing student. Once I began to realize that videos and using this process of education-based marketing works, I began to try and learn more and more about the marketing process and sales processes. And I would have a little notebook, and every time I'm on an airplane, every time I'm out with my kids, every time I'm somewhere, I have a little notebook, or at least I used to. And I would call it my $1 million notebook, because every time I had an idea, whether I'm at work or someplace else, I would write down a note. So let's say I'm in court, and now I'm sitting in the back of the courtroom waiting for my case to be called for a conference. And I see the plaintiff's attorney and the defense attorney together, shaking hands, sharing a little laugh. And I see one of the clients in the back scowling. I'm like, holy cow, that's a perfect topic for a video, which is exactly how I came up with that topic. Because from the person who's sitting in the back, the client, they don't know what they just witnessed. They have the worst ideas going on in their minds that there's some conspiracy. When you go into the judge's chambers for a conference, the client's sitting in the back of the courtroom. They think the worst. They don't know what goes on. So why don't you take them behind the doors, theoretically, and tell them and explain to them what goes on behind the doors? You need to open up, and I share this with so many attorneys across the country when I speak at different marketing events. And one of the things I tell them is, you as the attorney, You know every single aspect of how your type of case and how your type of law works, from the moment a client first calls you up until the time that you've resolved their matter. You know it cold, okay? And you should. Nobody asks you to go, you don't have to go ahead and go to your file cabinet to get an answer and how to answer a client's question. You know the answers. So ideally, one of the best ways to actually create content is take out a notepad, take out a legal pad, and simply write out a timeline. And the timeline is not your perspective of the timeline, it's from the client's perspective of what happens from the moment they realize they need an attorney all the way through every step of the way. There should be hundreds of little points from the time they're like, oh my God, I've been injured, I need to hire an attorney, to, okay, which attorney do I hire, to, okay, I've made an appointment with an attorney, what do I need to bring, to, I'm now at the attorney's office, who do I meet with? Who do I speak to? How long is this appointment going to last? What information are they going to ask of me? What do I have to give them? What's going to happen after this first appointment? So we know every single step of the process. The prospective client doesn't. So you take out your list and create that timeline of every little point, of every single thing. Now, I do not suggest creating a video or a blog article or any type of article for every little point. You know why? Because most of what we do each day is mundane. It's boring. Nobody's going to get excited and fascinated by you talking about some procedural nonsense. They're not. If you do, it's a waste of your time, I promise you. Instead, you have to pick out those points in the legal process that have conflict. Having conflict is where you will find the most interest from people who are searching. Because remember, the people who are searching for information have a problem. They don't know how to solve their legal problem. And now you need to get into the minds of these people, and you know what they're going through. You know exactly what problems they're experiencing. And now you just need to know where in the process they are. Have they already been injured in an accident? Are they in the hospital trying to get better? Are they just out of surgery? Did someone just bury their loved one and now they want to know whether or not to do an autopsy? You know, all of these things you have to understand and plot out on a simple timeline. But then focus on which of those things have the most conflict. In many of my videos, I talk about objections during deposition, objections at trial. What does an objection mean? Most people who are not in the legal field don't really understand or know what objection sustained means, what objection overruled means. They might hear about it on TV, they might see it in a movie, but they don't really know. What goes on during jury selection behind closed doors? The clients are never there, so why not open up the doors and teach them? By teaching them, you become a trusted resource for someone that now they can call and ask more information. And, you know, it's funny, when I first started creating videos and I started talking to lawyers across the country at various marketing seminars, legal marketing seminars, people would come up to me, especially marketing companies and their vendors, and would say, you know, what you're teaching these attorneys about these videos, it's all wrong, because no one's going to pay attention to somebody who creates a 3 or 4 or 5 minute video. They only have the attention span of a gnat. You know, you got 30 seconds, you got a minute, that's the most you can ever do. And you know what I tell these people? I say, you're 100% right. Nobody's going to ever watch it. You keep doing exactly what you're doing. And I'm sorry if I have offended you, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but I think you're absolutely right. Now, I know, and I just did this to appease them, but I know for a fact that what they were telling me was 100% wrong. And I'll tell you why. When they would tell me that you could only have a 30-second video or a 1-minute video, they were going based on TV advertisements, thinking that that is the maximum length of time that an attorney should be able to talk to generate a call. Well, those TV advertisements were different types of messages. They were basically bold in your face, call me because I'm great. I've been doing this 30 years. I'm great, call me. The one problem that none of those TV advertisements had, or any of those radio advertisements or billboard advertisements, was they never told you why. Why should I call you? Why shouldn't I call the next guy with the next TV ad? Why shouldn't I call this person? You're not distinguishing yourself from anybody else. And the other problem with having such a short video, short clip, is that there is no possible way, none in my opinion, that you can generate trust with a viewer in 30 seconds. Impossible. There is no way you can do it in a minute. That's why my videos have always been much longer. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dan Kennedy. He's one of the biggest business and marketing gurus out there. And I became a very big student of Dan Kennedy. He would always say, you know, people would always ask, well, how long should my marketing copy be? My sales copy, my advertising copy? And his answer was always, as long as it needs to be. Because the people who are interested in that topic will read it. The people who are interested will stay engaged and watch it. And that's what I've always done. I always felt that it's much more important to teach and educate and help people understand. Now remember, what I'm teaching them is not a secret. But at the same time, I'm not telling them everything they need to know. And I'm not teasing them either. I'm giving them useful information that will help them understand how their type of case works. But I'm not telling them every single thing that they need to know. In order to get the additional information, what do they have to do? Pick up the phone and call, or send me an email. And now we can have a discussion. That's the key. So you asked the question about how you come up with content. I love reading the newspaper and seeing what issues are in the paper today. You know, there are issues in your area of law that come up every single day. And why are there issues? Because there's conflict. There's always two sides. There's something going on in your field of law that should ring a bell. And I always tell attorneys, I said, listen, you will do so much better taking a stand and a position on one side or the other. Don't just stand there and say, hey, we handle these types of cases. That doesn't do any good, because the person searching for information it's not helping them. But instead, if you say, listen, I help people who are sexual abuse victims, and I help people with real estate transactional matters, I help people with their bankruptcy, whatever it is, and now I help people who are desperate to try and find a way to pay their bills. Whatever it is that you do, there's always conflict. Find that conflict and now use that to tell a story. Tell a story of someone you helped. And now, you don't have to go into procedural detail, but take the viewer through the story. All right, today I want to share with you a story of Jim. Jim came to me because his wife died recently of breast cancer. Let me share with you what happened to his wife. On day number 1, on January 1st, his wife felt a breast lump. 2 days later, she went into the gynecologist's office. And now the gynecologist looked at her, felt the breast, examined her, and said, you know what? Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Okay. So now Jane went ahead. She went on her way. She forgot about this lump. It went away after a while. Well, 3 years later, this thing comes back. And now it comes back with a vengeance. And by the time it came back, guess what? She was devastated to learn this was full-blown metastatic breast cancer. She had only months to live. And now what am I doing? I'm telling a story about somebody that I was able to help. I don't have to go into detail. I say, her husband came to us after the funeral to see if there was something that was done wrong. And what we did was X, Y, and Z. And now I can take them through the process a little bit about what we did to help solve their problem. If you go through and have a mental understanding, and then mindset is critical, of saying, what can I do? What can I teach my ideal client and consumer in order to help them understand how this works? If you have that mindset, all of a sudden you'll begin to realize, holy cow, I can teach them about this topic. I can teach them about this. Next thing you know, you have a whole laundry list of topics to talk about. And what are you doing, really? You're helping them understand how these cases work. And so when you were talking about, the topic of the video that I had created earlier, these topics and these videos last for a tremendous length of time. They don't go away because people are searching for them. and they're looking, and it comes up over and over and over again. So I think that's a critical way to help you understand how to create your topics, where to come up with information, and importantly, information that's important for your potential client who's doing what? Searching for information. Because the reality is, if they know an attorney, they're not online searching, right? If someone has referred them out, they're not online searching. However, it's those group of people, which is the majority of people now, who go online to look for information. They're not going to Yellow Pages. That's a thing of the past. They're not typically looking at the billboards, the radio. All those things do work. However, I did this. I created video to market my solo practice because I knew my practice was going downhill and I was desperate and I didn't have any other way. But the topics that you and I were just talking about, they can be used for every type of media, whether it's a blog post, an article, a magazine article, a video, or a television ad, or a radio ad. Every type of media you can think of, you can use this type of marketing process, and it does work over time. It's not instant. It's not one of the, let me share something else with you, Wayne, and I think it's important for the viewers to understand. You mentioned that I have over 11,000 subscribers to my channel. These are people who want information on a regular basis to see and learn about this type of thing. A medical malpractice attorney video is never going viral. Never. I can't compete with cute cat and puppy videos. I can't, and I'm not there to do that. My goal is not to create a viral video. My goal is not to create viral content. You know why? Because I don't want millions of people calling me. They don't all have valid cases. I want people who believe that they have a valid case where someone suffered injury as a result of someone's carelessness. That's my ideal client. That's who I create the content for. And ideally, when you create content, that's who you should be looking to do it, create this content for. So you can be found when someone's searching. And when I told you that these video views are all organic, there are some of my videos that get only a few views, some a few hundred, some a few thousand, some in the hundreds of thousands. But you know what? All organic means I'm not paying a dime for marketing, for advertising, for buying ads to promote that. People find this on their own when they're searching. And because people are interested, people stay and watch and are interested in the topic, now YouTube begins serving up more of my videos to viewers, and viewers like them. And so it goes in a cycle. You search for a topic, next thing you know, you got 5 of my videos show up next to it, 10 of my videos. Next thing you know, someone gets sucked in, they're watching 25 minutes, a half hour, or an hour of my videos. They're much more likely to develop trust than someone who's got a 30-second TV commercial or a 1-minute advertisement. So I hope that answered your question in a very, very explanatory way.
It is clear that you are a gifted storyteller. You're a student of marketing, as you mentioned, and you've been a trial lawyer for, 3 decades, 4 decades. I'm curious, how much did the trial lawyer life prepare you for those early videos in 2007 and 2008 for people who either aren't trial lawyers or who have not yet become students of marketing? I'm curious, the ability to tell a story on camera, which, by the way, you need not be a successful attorney marketer. You need not be a successful marketer as an attorney telling stories. You can deliver the facts, and I think still in certain practice groups see some success with your videos. But the combination of you being a student of marketing and a trial lawyer, to me, is a hell of a combination for storytelling, especially on YouTube. If you only have one or the other, or perhaps neither, do you think you can develop the storytelling chops through studying and other means?
Yeah, and to answer your question, I don't think that being a trial lawyer helped me at all with my marketing. And I don't think it helped me at all with learning to develop my persona on camera. And if you watch my videos, you will see that I first started off doing my videos very stiff and formal. I'm wearing a suit, tie, because I thought that that's what attorneys needed to do. I thought that that was the perception that if my client didn't see me wearing a suit and tie, they would never call me. My perception and my feelings have evolved over time to the point where now all my videos are done on the beach, wearing a baseball hat or in a t-shirt and with sunglasses, because I realized that I just want to be comfortable with teaching my ideal clients and consumers. And for me, I don't care. And my clients, the people who are watching, the consumers, the subscribers, they like the fact that I am informal. They like the fact that I'm not some stiff, stuffy, guy sitting with a three-piece suit in front of a legal bookcase, sitting at my desk with my arms crossed like this. They appreciate the fact that I'm just like them. And so for me, that works. I want to touch on one thing that you mentioned. When I began shooting my videos in the very beginning, and over the couple of years, I began to become proficient at it. Remember, I didn't have a company that would edit my videos, that would then upload them. I had to learn how to do this all myself, and it was torture. And remember, at the beginning, I told you, my family, my wife said to me, you got to stop doing this. You're wasting so much time. No, and this is great. My wife said to me, no one is ever going to call an attorney who they see on video. Nobody. I said, I'm telling you, that's wrong. Somebody will find it. Somebody will call. And so what would happen was we would be driving in the car, since I was a solo. After my secretary left, my calls would be forwarded to my cell phone. And I would get calls in the car with my kids in the back, my wife, and I'd put it on speaker. Mr. Oginski, I just saw your video about this topic. Can I ask you some questions? And I'd turn to my wife and I'd point to the cell phone. And afterwards I say, what was that you said about nobody calling? By editing, by learning to edit my videos, this is important. I learned how to focus what was important in my message and what wasn't. Just like when you edit a brief, when you edit an article, when you do it over and over again, you learn what's necessary and what's not. And by doing that over a number of years, I can tell you I became much better, much more proficient at communicating a shorter, concise, tight message, educational message, that transferred over to my ability to communicate with the judge, my ability to communicate with my adversary, with the claims examiner. And now I can tell the claims examiner in 2 sentences what my case is about and why they're responsible for my client's injuries. When we have a conference with the court, I now have the ability, instead of taking up 5 or 10 minutes going through the facts of the case, Judge, this is a case involving a woman, failure to diagnose breast cancer in a 41-year-old as a result of them failing to do X, Y, and Z. In just 2 sentences, I can do that. That was remarkable to me, and I didn't begin to notice that until I did many years' worth of video. So again, it's dramatically changed the way I'm able to present my material when I'm handling cases, my ability to tell a story, and my ability to communicate, not just with viewers, but with my family, with my kids. So I think it's remarkable, and it is a learned process that can be learned. And the only way, no one is born learning how to do this. The only thing that you can do, and the best suggestion I can make, is start with your first video. Start with your first blog post. And now, film yourself, videotape yourself, take out your phone, do it. It doesn't matter if it's terrible. Now do the second one, and a third, and a fourth. And you know what? A year from now, you'll look back on that first video and say the same thing I did. It was the worst video in creation. But you will dramatically see how you will have improved in your presentation, in your mannerisms, in your ability to not focus. I'll tell you something else quickly. Once I became so proficient at creating video for myself, I decided, you know what? I could create a second business helping other lawyers do the same thing I did. And I created a company called the Lawyers Video Studio. And I would go ahead and market myself to other lawyers to create video for them. And these lawyers were just learning, just like you said, learning how to create marketing messages. And I would have to create outlines with them, not scripts, because I think scripts are the worst for the same reason that I told you. When someone comes into your office and they ask you a question, You don't say, hold on, let me run to the file cabinet, get my script, and I'm going to read you the answer. You know the answer. So we would use outlines for these attorneys, and they had to practice. I said, the only way you're going to have a semblance of being good is practice over and over and over, just like you wouldn't go into court without practicing and without knowing your arguments. The same thing on video, the same exact thing. So take out your camera, take a topic, and just start talking. And I'll give you 2 other tips that will be really, really helpful. If you're going to be sitting down, and I recommend you don't, you should be standing, because for a lot of different psychological reasons, you should be animated. You should be energetic. You should be using your hands. And the reason you do that is because the more energetic you are on camera, the more interested the viewer believes and feels as they're watching you. Like you have a direct investment in them. Why? Because they are looking directly at you. Don't pretend it's an interview where you're sitting at a 45-degree angle when you're really looking at the wall and pretending somebody's interviewing you. Okay? From a psychological perspective, when you have a conversation with somebody who walks into your office, a new client, and they ask you a question, do you say, excuse me, Mr. Jones, let me answer the wall at a 45-degree angle away from you? No, don't do that. Instead, look them right in the eye, which means for you, look at them in the camera. Look directly into the camera. That is your client that you're talking to. Talk to them. And just imagine that you are at your kitchen table. It's a Sunday morning. They've come over for coffee. And now they unload on you and they tell you, listen, I don't know how to say this, but I just had this major problem. And I don't know where to turn. I don't know what to do. And you say, you know, I have the solution to your problem. And now you begin to go ahead and start explaining to them how this process works. And you're having a great conversation. And you're so excited about it. Okay, not overly excited, but I mean, truly, you have to, in your mind, become excited about the stuff that you know and that you're so excited sharing this information with your viewer. And the more you do that, the more genuine you will feel, the more genuine your viewer will realize you are, and that you truly do want to help them. And this is not simply a marketing ploy to get somebody to call you. Okay, so those are some key tips that will help you dramatically when you start to create content and video content for your own marketing purposes.
Can you talk a little bit about, as we start to wind down here, a little bit about referrals? Because so often lawyers, especially in the direct-to-consumer law space, PI, family law, criminal law, they often focus on marketing to clients, current clients, prospective clients, and that's what we're talking about. We're focused on that. But referrals have always been a source of new client matters for lawyers for time immemorial, and it will continue to be a great source. How has your video marketing impacted either incoming referrals or your ability, you alluded to this before, your ability to create an outbound referral network based on people watching your videos?
It has skyrocketed. Before I started doing any marketing, I had no network. I didn't know who to refer to other than, attorneys that I knew from the courthouse or people I knew in the community. The fact that I can walk into the courthouse and lawyers who I have no idea who they are come up to me and said, oh, you're Gerry Oginski. Oh my God, I've seen your videos. They're great. Thank you so much for sharing. And these are opponents. These are people who do defense work. And I only do plaintiff's work now, and for many years. So I get calls from defense attorneys with potential cases. I get calls from people across the country who have potential cases. I get calls from people out of the country who think that I can somehow help them. And the reality is I can't, and I tell them that. But it's allowed me the ability to send clients out. And, for lawyers who think, any student, any marketing student who thinks that this video stuff doesn't work, I will tell you, you're 100% right. It doesn't work. Just like I told the vendors, it doesn't work. But in reality, as I would tell many attorneys at these marketing seminars, these legal marketing seminars, it works tremendously. The videos have been responsible for generating many, many, many valid cases for me in the many multiple millions of dollars for settlements for clients. One recent case that I referred into my firm a number of years ago recently settled for $9.8 million. And that was a direct result of someone coming to me from a video I created. And, it's remarkable that this works. And it's only remarkable because of the educational material that I put out there. And I'm not there to promote myself. And this is something else I think you'll find interesting. In all of the videos that I've created, over 3,400 and something, I don't talk about myself, ever. I don't talk about my credentials. I don't do it. And I'd highly recommend not doing it. Why? Because a consumer has no idea how to compare you to anybody else. They don't know about the distinguishing characteristics. If you went to a certain law school and you achieved certain honors in certain organizations that you belong to, and you were on law review, and you were on this committee, and you were on that committee, and now you've achieved great successes, but your competitor down the street also went to a very prestigious law school and also had all these awards and also did great things. How does a consumer have any clue who's the better lawyer, who they should go to? The reality is that they don't. So I strongly suggest don't talk about yourself. Don't talk about any of your credentials. Don't talk about how long you've been in practice. Your consumer doesn't care. There's only one single thing they care about. How can you help solve their problem? And if you can begin to explain how to solve their problem, they're much more likely to pick up the phone and call you instead of all your competitors.
What do you say to the attorney, the skeptical attorney who listens to this podcast, watches the video, and says, that Oginski, he's obviously knows what he's doing when it comes to video marketing, but he's a personal injury attorney. He's a medical malpractice attorney. I'm a corporate attorney. I serve general counsels at Fortune 500 companies, or I deal with FDA regulation, or I do cybersecurity consulting or cybersecurity privacy law for large corporations. What do you say to those attorneys who say, not going to work for my client base?
My first reaction is to say you're absolutely right. Don't do it, because the smart attorneys will do it. On the other hand, what I really will tell you is you should take out your video camera, take out your phone, and start creating videos for your ideal client. So let's say you're general counsel, and now you're looking for local counsel to handle your particular issues that you've got. Great. How are you choosing from one attorney to the next? What information will local counsel need to know to decide whether or not this is something they should be bidding on or putting in a bid for their services, so that you can decide whether or not they're right for what your issue is? You need to create videos talking about what it is that you do, how people can learn and help themselves by watching. That you just want them to understand what you do. The more information you can put out, I guarantee you, the more you will generate calls from your colleagues who are looking for that information. I had a good friend of mine who is general counsel for a real estate firm. And back when I started doing video, I would tell him, you need to start creating video. He's like, oh, no, we could never do that. The lawyers just don't do that thing. I said, you're wrong. I'm telling you, you're wrong. Do it. He didn't listen to me. So now fast forward to a couple of years. And of course, what's going on now? So many of his competitors are creating these videos. Look at TikTok. If you're on social media at all, you'll see these attorneys in every type of law are creating these TikTok videos. Why? To generate followings. People who generate followings tend to get calls. They're not promoting themselves outwardly, but maybe they're teaching something useful. And the people who are interested are people who have a problem, or they're learning about this topic. And now they're much more likely to call you because you're educating them. You're teaching them. It makes no difference what type of law you practice. And by the way, the videos I would create for lawyers across the country, they were in every single type of law you can imagine. Every single type, from bankruptcy to real estate transactions to corporate law and everything in between. And at first, those lawyers said the same exact thing you just said, Wayne. Oh, this would never work for me. I said, I'm telling you, you're wrong. I guarantee you that none of your competitors are doing it. And by creating these videos, you will have a significant leg up. And now you'll be found as someone is searching for information. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. Does your lawyer's video studio website or YouTube channel have examples of these videos of lawyers that aren't PI attorneys?
There should still be some. I've stopped doing it for other lawyers for a couple of years now because I am focused on being the best malpractice attorney I can be, while at the same time marketing myself. So I've stopped doing it for other attorneys, but you still may find some of the videos that I had up there. I think you can, sure.
Well, and to your point too about general counsel and corporate counsel, there's a joke in sports that the other team watches video too. The other team scouts and has an idea of what teams do when they play other teams. And general counsel has Google. They've got YouTube, right? They have social media. They're not idiots. They look at videos. They do web searches in their personal lives. They certainly do it in their professional lives, because when you don't know something, your first instinct is to find it on the internet. And when you type in, white collar defense, internal investigation, inside trading, you're going to find maybe not videos, but you're going to find some law firms got a white paper or has an article or has a series of blog posts. So it's out there. It doesn't really matter who the attorney is, what level they're at, or what level the client is at. They know how to find this information. They're looking for information. You provide them information, and hopefully that's the beginning of a relationship that's fruitful for the lawyer. Normally, I would ask as we wrap up to leave us with a couple pearls of wisdom. You've done that throughout the course of this interview. Thank you. My question for you is, what's the one thing that you wish you knew when you started down this video marketing journey that you know now?
I wish there was a company that did all the things that I ultimately did in the lawyer's video studio, helping lawyers do this. I wish there was a marketing company back then that did this, because I didn't want to do any of this marketing. It was only through sheer desperation that I had to learn how to do this. So that's what I wish had occurred. Now you find tons and tons of marketing companies doing all sorts of type of marketing for you, social media, video, blog posts, writing articles for all this stuff that attorneys don't have to do it. But I really, really wish that I didn't have to. But the reality is I did, and I'm actually glad I did. And I'm glad I became a marketing student, because that has changed the way I view my consumer, changed the way my clients, and how I help other people, just helping their consumers, their ideal clients, understand how these cases work.
There's no better way to control your own destiny as a lawyer, no matter what area of law you practice, than being able to generate clients, generate business, have that book of business, because you control your future. No one can tell you what to do when you're the one bringing in the clients and bringing in, eventually, hopefully, the attorney's fees and the other revenue into the firm. Gerry, where can people find you? Yeah, go ahead.
Wait, I just want to tell you one quick thing. When I joined my firm where I'm currently at, a few days after I started, the senior partner comes into me and says, I have to talk to you. I'm like, okay, sure. What's going on? She's like, how is it that you're generating all these calls to our office? And I just smiled. And I began to tell her about this video marketing process that turned into a video marketing machine for me. And she looked at me and said, you know what? Keep doing what you're doing. And that was very, very eye-opening for me. So yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, at that point, did you feel compelled to bring your wife in through a conference call just to let her know again? Or has she now gotten the point that YouTube is an effective marketing tool for lawyers like you?
Yeah, she and my kids have both realized, they all realize that this is a very effective tool.
Yeah, that's great. What's your content? What's the best way for people to reach you, learn more about you?
I would suggest going to my YouTube channel. Just type in New York Medical Malpractice Attorney, and they'll find lots and lots of my videos. That's the best way. And you can always leave me a comment through YouTube. If you really want to see my own personal website, it's oginski-law.com, oginski-law.com.
And we'll have all of those links in the show notes. And again, talk about branding. Imagine you type in New York Medical Malpractice Attorney into YouTube, and you find Gerry pretty quickly based on the following he's created, based on the views his videos have gotten. Gerry, thank you again for taking the time. This conversation was wonderful, and I hope people leave this conversation with a newfound appreciation for the powers of video marketing, and hopefully this compels them to get off the sidelines and onto the video marketing playing field.
Thank you, Wayne.